15 On January 7, 1945, Major Thomas Maguire climbed into the cockpit of a P-38 Lightning at Dulag Airfield on Leyte, watching three other Lightnings prepare for a fighter sweep he wasn't cleared to fly. 24 years old, 38 confirmed victories, two short of America's ace of aces. Richard Bong had 40 kills. Maguire had 38, and Lieutenant General George Kenney had explicitly grounded him to preserve that margin. By January 1945, the 5th Air Force faced two problems in the Philippines. The first was Japanese fighters still operating from concealed airstrips across the islands. The second was Thomas Maguire's obsession with surpassing Dick Bond's record. Maguire had joined the 431st Fighter Squadron of the 475th Fighter Group in July 1943. For the first year, combat had been frustrating. Administrative duties as squadron commander kept him grounded for weeks at a time. Occasional illness knocked him out of action. While other pilots accumulated kills, Maguire flew a desk. Then August 18, 1943, changed everything over WWII, New Guinea. Maguire shot down two Nakajima Ki-43 Oscars and one Kawasaki Ki-61 Tony. The next day, he downed two more Oscars, 5 kills in 2 days, ace status after a year of inactivity. His mastery of maneuvering the twin-engine P-38 became legendary. Other pilots struggled with the Lightning's size and complexity. Maguire made it dance. He authored a combat tactics manual for the entire 5th Air Force. Civilian contractor Charles Lindbergh bunked with him in summer 1944, flew as his wingman on unauthorized missions. Maguire treated the famous aviator like an errand boy. By October 17, 1943, Maguire had 11 confirmed victories. That day over Oro Bay, he dove into 7 Zeros attacking a lone P-38 and shot down 3. The remaining 4 shredded his aircraft. The controls were destroyed. He bailed out at 12,000 feet, but his parachute harness snagged in the cockpit, sending him plummeting 1,000 feet before freeing himself. He landed in the ocean, 25 miles from shore. His life raft had shrapnel holes and could not inflate. A Navy PT boat rescued him 30 minutes later. 6 weeks in the hospital followed, wrist wound, broken ribs, and additional injuries that would have ended most pilots' careers. Maguire returned to combat, and the race with Bong intensified through 1944. Every time Maguire closed the gap, Bong matched him kill for kill. On November 10, Maguire shot down a Ki-43 over Ormoc Bay. A chunk of the exploding Oscar smashed through his canopy, striking him in the head and knocking him unconscious. When he came to, his face was covered in blood. He told no one, fearing he'd be pulled off flight status. On December 7, he flew with Bong over Ormoc Bay. Afterward, he realized he had been sitting in a pool of blood. A rifle-caliber bullet had punctured his cockpit during a strafing run, grazing his buttocks. He said nothing. Christmas Day 1944, Maguire led 15 P-38s as top cover for bombers striking Mabalacat Airfield over Luzon. 20 Japanese fighters attacked. Maguire's guns jammed mid-fight. For 30 minutes, he relied solely on his P-38 as a weapon, maneuvering like a madman, drawing enemy fighters away from the bombers and forcing one into his wingman's line of fire. 3 confirmed kills that day. December 26, Maguire volunteered to lead escort fighters to Clark Field. During the engagement, he shot down 4 more Japanese fighters in rapid succession, 38th victory, 2 behind Bong. General Kenney made a decision. Bong was flying home for a publicity tour. America's ace of aces deserved his moment. Kenney grounded Maguire until Bong's welcome home celebration. Maguire ignored the order. On December 30th, 31st, and January 2nd, he flew unauthorized combat missions. His entire squadron knew he had been benched but looked the other way. Should he shoot anyone down, he would simply withhold the news until Bong was celebrated stateside. If you want to see how Maguire's final mission unfolded, hit the like button. It helps us share more forgotten stories from the Pacific War. Subscribe if you haven't already. Back to Maguire. Kenney never discovered the unauthorized flights. Bong landed in San Francisco on New Year's Eve, starting his victory lap. Maguire planned one more mission, January 7th, a fighter sweep over Negros Island. 4 P-38s, himself, Major Jack Rittmeyer from the 13th Air Force, Captain Edwin Weaver, and Lieutenant Douglas Throp. 15. Maguire made a decision about external fuel tanks. Standard procedure was to jettison drop tanks before engaging enemy fighters. The extra weight and drag made the P-38 dangerously unstable in combat maneuvers. Every pilot knew this. Maguire had written about it in his tactics manual, but he wanted 3 kills to tie Bong's record. The drop tanks provided range to search multiple airstrips. He ordered his flight to keep them attached. The 4 P-38 Lightnings lifted off from Dulag at 6:30, each carrying 2 external drop tanks of 150 gallons apiece, 300 gallons of extra fuel beneath the wings. The tanks added roughly 1,000 pounds to each Lightning, reducing speed, maneuverability, and increasing vulnerability. Maguire led the flight north toward Negros. Rittmeyer flew number 2, Weaver number 3, Throp number 4. Their mission was simple: locate Japanese fighters and shoot them down. McGuire needed 3 kills to tie Bond's record of 40. They reached Negros at 7:20 and descended through cloud cover. Below stretched 2 Japanese airstrips, Fabrica Aerodrome to the north, Manopa Airstrip to the south. Intelligence suggested both were operational despite prior American bombing raids. McGuire circled Fabrica at 1,500 feet, no aircraft on the ground, no movement, the field appeared abandoned. He turned south toward Manopa. The second airstrip lay hidden in jungle vegetation, harder to spot from altitude, easier to conceal fighters. 35. Captain Weaver spotted a lone aircraft climbing toward them from below and left a Nakajima Ki-43 Oscar, a Japanese Army Air Force fighter, lighter and more maneuverable than the P-38 in a turning fight. The Oscar pilot should have fled. 4 P-38s against 1 Oscar meant certain death. The Oscar attacked anyway. Lieutenant Throp, flying number 3, saw the Oscar coming head-on and broke hard left. The Japanese pilot turned with him, fell into position behind Throp, and opened fire with 12.7mm rounds. Throp's P-38 shuddered as bullets struck the left engine. Major Rittmeyer dove to assist. Throp drove the Oscar off his tail. The Japanese pilot broke away, seeking new targets. McGuire and Weaver were directly ahead. The flight had encountered Warrant Officer Akira Sugioto, a Japanese instructor pilot with 3,000 hours in the Ki-43 Oscar, one of the most seasoned fighter pilots remaining in the Philippines. Sugioto had survived 2 years of combat in New Guinea and the Dutch East Indies. He knew every limitation and advantage of his aircraft. The P-38s were faster, heavier, and better armed, 4.50 caliber machine guns and 120mm cannon in each nose. Devastating firepower if they could bring their guns to bear. But the P-38s carried drop tanks. The extra weight made them sluggish. Sugioto recognized this instantly. He stayed behind Weaver, firing controlled bursts. Weaver radioed he was under attack and cut inside his turn, presenting a more difficult angle. The maneuver worked. Sugioto couldn't get a clean shot. McGuire eased up on his own turn rate, drawing the Japanese pilot's attention away from Weaver. Sugioto took the bait and switched his attack to McGuire. The 2 aircraft began a turning engagement at 300 feet above the jungle canopy, dangerous for any maneuver, suicidal for a P-38 with drop tanks. McGuire had written about this exact scenario in his manual: never engage at low altitude with drop tanks attached. The warning came from hard-won experience, from watching others die making this precise error. McGuire increased his turn rate, attempting to bring his guns to bear. Sugioto stayed behind, closing the distance. McGuire pulled harder. The P-38's airspeed bled off, 180 knots, 160, 140. The Lightning's twin Allison engines roared at full power. The airframe shuddered. War needed just a few more degrees, just enough to get Sugimoto in his gun sight, just enough to fire. Above them, another Japanese fighter appeared, a second Oscar, this one flown by Technical Sergeant Missionori Fukura, 21 years old, former instructor, recently assigned to the 71st Centi. Fukuda dove on Major Rittmeyer's P-38, attacked head-on, unleashed a devastating volley that shattered Rittmeyer's center nell and cockpit. The P-38 disintegrated, pitched down into a river. Rittmeyer died on impact. Moore saw none of this. His entire focus remained on Sugioto, on getting his guns lined up, on making the kill that would bring him one step closer to Bong's record. He pulled harder on the control yoke. The P-38 Lightning stalled at 300 foot. McGuire felt it instantly. The control yoke went mushy in his hands. The nose dropped. The aircraft snap-rolled inverted. Both Allison engines screaming at full throttle but generating no lift. The twin booms flipped upside down. The jungle canopy rushed up at him. He had 2 seconds, maybe 3, at 300 feet with a fully loaded P-38, recovery was impossible. The external drop tanks made it worse. 1,000 lbs of dead weight. The Lightning fell like a brick. McGuire tried anyway, pushed the yoke forward to recover from the stall, started to roll the aircraft upright. For a fraction of a second, it looked like he might make it. The nose began to come up. The wings started to level. Then the ground arrived. The P-38 struck the jungle at 0741, January 7, 1945. The impact killed McGuire instantly. The aircraft exploded. Flames and black smoke rose above the tree line. Filipino civilians witnessed the crash from a nearby village. They rushed to the site, secured McGuire's body before Japanese forces could reach the wreckage. Above the crash site, the dogfight continued. For another 30 seconds, Captain Weaver had observed Fukuda attacking Rittmeyer. Weaver fired at the Japanese pilot, severely damaged his Oscar.
Fukuda managed a wheels-up landing at Monopoly Airip.
His aircraft was destroyed on landing.
He survived. Warrant Officer Sugioto had also taken damage from the combined fire of Throp and Rittmeyer before Rittmeyer went down.
Sugioto's Oscar limped back toward Monopole, made it to the airfield, crash-landed. Filipino guerrillas found him later that day and killed him.
Lieutenant Throp's
P-38 had damage to one engine, trailing smoke.
Captain Weaver's Lightning was intact.
The two surviving Americans turned for home. They had lost their leader and Major Rittmeyer in less than 2
minutes of combat against 2 Japanese fighters,
while flying 4 P-38s. Carrying full external fuel tanks, the word reached 5th Air Force headquarters within hours.
Major Thomas McGuire was missing in action, presumed dead.
General George Kenney received the
news while preparing for a conference in Manila. He stopped thinking about the war, stopped thinking about operations.
Started thinking about the young pilot he'd grounded 3 weeks earlier, the pilot who'd ignored the order and flown
anyway.
The pilot who'd been 2 kills away from breaking America's aerial victory record.
Back in the United
States, Dick Bond was completing his publicity tour.
War bond rallies, newspaper interviews, parade
appearances, America's ace of aces with 40 confirmed victories. The tour was
supposed to last another 2 weeks. Then Bang would marry his fiancée Marjorie and take an assignment as a test pilot. The news about McGuire reached Bang on January 8. The rivalry was over. Bang would remain America's highest-scoring ace, but he'd lost a fellow P-38 pilot, someone who understood what it meant to hunt Japanese fighters over the Pacific, someone who'd pushed the Lightning to its absolute limits. McGuire's body remained in the Philippines until 1949.
The U.S. Army recovered his remains from the crash site, returned them to the United States.
On May 17, 1950, Thomas Buchanan McGuire Jr. was buried with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery.
He was posthumously
promoted to lieutenant colonel. McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey was named in his honor in 1948. The Medal of Honor citation was published on March 7, 1946. It covered McGuire's actions on December 25 and 26, 1944.
The 7 kills over 2 days. The missions were his.
Guns jammed and he continued fighting anyway. The risks he took to protect bombers and rescue wingmen. The citation
made no mention of January 7, made no mention of the unauthorized fighter sweep, made no mention of the decision to keep external fuel tanks attached during combat, made no mention of the low-altitude turning fight that violated every principle McGuire himself had written about in his tactics manual. But every P-38 pilot in the 5th Air Force
knew what happened. They knew McGuire had broken his own rules. They knew he'd been grounded and flew anyway. They knew he'd been obsessed with beating Bond's record.
They knew the obsession killed him.
The question nobody could answer was why? Why would one of the finest pilots in the Army Air Forces make such a fundamental mistake? Why would the man who wrote the tactics manual ignore his own teachings? Why would someone with 38 confirmed victories throw it all away? Chasing 2 more?
The answer lay in McGuire's path to becoming America's second highest scoring ace.
Thomas Buchanan McGuire Jr. was born in Ridgewood, New Jersey on August 1, 1920. His parents divorced when he was young.
He moved with his mother to Sebring, Florida, where he grew up in the Deep South.
Small town, population
under 5,000, not many opportunities for a kid with big ambitions.
McGuire didn't fit in at school.
Defensive, prickly, developed a sense of superiority to conceal insecurities from years of
bullying. Aviation became his escape. He enrolled at Georgia Institute of Technology in 1938 to study aeronautical engineering.
Played in the marching band, sergeant major in ROC, member of
Beta Theta Pi fraternity, left after his 3rd year to join the Army Air Corps in
1941. He reported to flying school in Corsicana, Texas as an aviation cadet.
Received further training in San Antonio. Commissioned 2nd lieutenant on February 2, 1942.
Awarded his pilot wings at Kelly Field. 21 years old, fresh out of flight school, no combat experience, no kills. The Army assigned him to the 313th Pursuit Squadron at Selfridge Field, Michigan, then to the 56th Pursuit Squadron at Pay Field, Washington.
In
June 1942, McGuire received his first combat assignment, the Aleutian Islands.
Flying patrols in a Bell P-39 Arakko Cobra.
The illusions were miserable. Constant fog, rain, wind, temperatures barely above freezing, even in summer.
Japanese forces had occupied Atu and Kiska Islands.
American fighters flew patrol missions looking for bombers and
reconnaissance aircraft. Most missions saw nothing but clouds and ocean. McGuire flew with the 54th Fighter Group.
From June to October 1942.
4 months of combat patrols, 0
aerial victories, 0 opportunities to engage the enemy.
The P-39 Airacco Cobra
was a poor aircraft for the mission. Short range, poor high-altitude performance, but it was what they had. In December 1942, McGuire married Marilyn Gisler.
Her nickname was Pudgy.
McGuire transferred to Hamilton Field, California shortly after the wedding. In February 1943, he reported to Orange County Airport for transition training. New aircraft, the Lockheed P-38
Lightning. The Lightning was everything the Airacco Cobra wasn't. Twin engines, long range, heavy armament, tricycle landing gear, excellent high altitude performance.
But it was big, complex, difficult to master.
Many pilots struggled with the transition. McGuire took to it immediately. The size didn't intimidate him. The complexity became second nature.
He studied every system, understood how to maximize performance, learned to make the big twin-engine fighter move like a single-engine pursuit plane. In March 1943, he shipped
to the Southwest Pacific.
Assigned to the 9th Fighter Squadron, 49th Fighter Group, 5th Air Force, based in New
Guinea.
Dick Bong was already there, already scoring victories, already
building a reputation. McGuire flew his first combat mission with the 49th on April 22. 2 months later in June, he
transferred to a brand new unit, the 475th Fighter Group.
Lieutenant General
George Kenney had created an entire group of P-38s, called them Satan's Angels.
McGuire joined the 431st Fighter Squadron.
For the next year, frustration defined his combat career.
Administrative duties kept him grounded. As Squadron Operations Officer, then Squadron Commander, McGuire spent more time at a desk than in a cockpit. When
he did fly combat missions, Japanese fighters were scarce.
New Guinea was winding down. The enemy was retreating north.
Meanwhile, other pilots racked up kills.
Tommy Lynch, Neil Kirby, and especially Dick Bong. By mid-1943, Bong
had 16 confirmed victories. McGuire had 0.
The frustration ate at him. He'd
been flying combat missions for over a year.
Nothing to show for it. No kills,
no recognition, no progress toward becoming an ace.
Other pilots talked about Bong, about Lynch, about Kirby. Nobody talked about McGuire.
He started preparing differently, became obsessive about details.
Personally borrowed the guns on every aircraft in his squadron, a job normally done by ground crew. McGuire didn't trust anyone else to do it right.
He studied Japanese fighter tactics, learned their strengths and weaknesses, memorized recognition silhouettes for every enemy aircraft type.
August 18, 1943. Finally, a mission to WWII, New Guinea. McGuire's squadron flew top cover for bombers. As they approached the target, Japanese fighters intercepted Nakajima Ki-43 Oscars, Kawasaki Ki-61 Tonys. McGuire dove into the fight. 2 Oscars destroyed, 1 Tony destroyed, 3 kills in one mission. August 19, same area. McGuire shot down 2 more Oscars. 5 victories in 2 days.
Ace status after 13 months of nothing.
McGuire had arrived, but 5 kills wasn't enough. Lynch had more, Kirby had more, and Bong kept pulling further ahead.
By September, Bong had 20 victories. McGuire had 5. The race had begun, and McGuire would do anything to win it. McGuire's kill count climbed slowly through late 1943. September, October. Missions over New Guinea and New Britain. Japanese fighters becoming harder to find. The enemy was conserving aircraft, pulling back to defend more critical positions. Some missions saw no enemy contact at all.
October 17 changed everything. McGuire was flying patrol over Aro Bay when radar picked up incoming Japanese bombers. Mitsubishi G4M Bettys escorted by Mitsubishi A6M Zeros. Maguire's flight scrambled from WWII at 23,000 foot. He spotted the formation below.
15 to 20 Zeros and one lone P-38 trailing.
Smoke. 7 Zeros were attacking it. The P-38 pilot was finished unless someone intervened. Maguire didn't hesitate, dropped his external tanks, dove straight into the enemy formation. 3 Zeros destroyed in rapid succession.
The other P-38 pilots survived, escaped, but now the remaining
4 Zeros focused entirely on Moore. They swarmed him, cannon fire shredded his left engine.
Machine gun rounds hit his right engine.
A 20mm shell exploded
in his radio compartment.
A 7.7mm bullet struck his wrist, passed through into the instrument panel. Shrapnel punctured his right arm and both hips. Maguire tried to pull out of his dive. The elevator controls were gone, completely useless. He released the escape hatch, tried to bail out. His parachute harness snagged on something inside the cockpit.
The P-38 fell from 12,000 feet, 10,000, 8,000.
Maguire struggled with the harness. 6,000, 4,000, 2,000. At approximately 1,000 feet, he broke free, jumped, the parachute deployed. He hit the water 25 miles offshore. His life raft had shrapnel holes, wouldn't inflate. Maguire floated in the ocean for 30 minutes before Navy Point Boat 152 picked him up, carried him to PT Tender Hilo in Buena Bay.
6 weeks in the hospital, wrist wound, broken ribs, puncture wounds.
Most pilots would have been sent home. Maguire refused. Returned to his squadron in December.
11 confirmed victories.
Still far behind. Bang. Through early 1944, Maguire resumed combat operations. Administrative duties continued to limit his flying time.
As commander of the 431st Fighter Squadron from April to December, he spent significant time on paperwork, training, and planning.
Meanwhile, Bong flew missions as a
freelance pilot attached directly to V Fighter Command.
No administrative burden, just flying and killing. April 12, 1944, Bong shot down his 26th and 27th victories over Hollandia.
Surpassed Eddie Rickenbacker's World War I record of 26.
Became America's highest scoring
ace in history.
National hero. Newspapers ran stories. Kenny promoted him to major.
Maguire had 16 kills at the time, 10 behind Bong.
The gap felt insurmountable. Summer 1944 brought an unusual visitor to the 475th Fighter Group, Charles Lindbergh, the famous aviator, first man to fly solo across the Atlantic. By
1944, Lindbergh was a civilian contractor working for United Aircraft Corporation. He visited the Southwest Pacific to study P-38 operations and fuel efficiency. Lindbergh bunked with Maguire. For several weeks, flew as his wingman on unauthorized combat missions. The arrangement was illegal.
Civilians weren't permitted to engage in combat. Lindbergh did it anyway.
Maguire treated him like an assistant, ordered him around, told him to fetch coffee, run errands.
Other pilots found it amusing. Lindbergh quietly complied. Maguire studied Lindbergh's fuel conservation techniques, applied them to his own
flying, extended the P-38's range by careful throttle management. The extra range meant more time over target, more opportunities to find Japanese fighters, more chances to score kills.
By October
1944, Maguire's score stood at 24.
Bang had 38.
The Philippines campaign was
beginning. Both pilots flew from Tacloban Airfield on Lee Japanese air. Opposition was fierce.
Targets were plentiful.
The race accelerated. November 2nd, Maguire escorted bombers to Ormoc Bay, shot down a Ki-43 Oscar.
During his strafing run on Japanese ships, rifle-caliber ground fire punctured his cockpit. A bullet grazed his buttocks. He discovered the wound after landing. Blood soaked his seat.
He told no one, kept flying. 25 victories. November 10th, another mission over. Ormoc. Maguire destroyed another Ki-43.
During the engagement, a chunk of the
Exploding Oscar smashed through his canopy, struck him in the head, knocked him unconscious. He came 2 seconds later. Blood covered his face. Somehow, he flew the damaged P-38 back to base, landed, said nothing about the head injury. 26 victories. Bong shot down his 40th victory on December 17, 1944. 40 kills. The race was over. America's ace of aces. General MacArthur personally awarded him the Medal of Honor. McGuire had 31. General Kenny made his decision on December 18. Dick Bong was going home. 40 victories. Medal of Honor. America needed its hero for war bond tours and publicity. The ace of aces deserved a proper celebration stateside. Kenny ordered Bong back to the United States. McGuire had 31 victories, 9 behind. The gap seemed impossible to close, but Bong would be gone for weeks, maybe months. Japanese air opposition over the Philippines remained strong. Targets were everywhere. McGuire saw his opportunity. December 25, 1944. Christmas Day. McGuire volunteered to lead 15 P-38s as top cover for bombers, striking Mabalicat Airdrome over Luzon. The Japanese had captured the airfield in December 1941. Now American bombers were taking it back. Heavy resistance expected. The formation approached the target at 0900 hours. 20 Japanese fighters attacked. Zeros and Oscars. They came from the east, using the sun's glare for cover, dove into the American formation.
McGuire's P-38s turned to meet them.
The fight lasted 30 minutes. McGuire destroyed 3 Zeros. During the engagement, his guns jammed. All 450 caliber machine guns and the 20mm cannon. Dead. No way to shoot. Most pilots would have withdrawn, headed home. Not more.
He continued fighting for another 30 minutes, using his P-38 as his only weapon, maneuvering aggressively, dashing at enemy fighters, chasing them, drawing them away from the bombers. At one point, he forced a Zero into his wingman's line of fire. His wingman shot it down. McGuire got credit for the assist. 3 confirmed kills on Christmas Day, 34 total, 6 behind. Bong. December 26, McGuire volunteered again, this time to lead escort fighters to Clark Field, another Japanese stronghold, another heavily defended target. The mission launched at 0800 hours. Japanese fighters intercepted over Luzon. McGuire's formation was attacked immediately. He repeatedly flew to the aid of embattled comrades, drove off enemy assaults while himself under attack, sometimes outnumbered 3-1. At times outnumbered worse. During the engagement, he exposed himself to attacks to rescue a crippled bomber. Shot down 1 aircraft, parried the attack of 4 enemy fighters, shot down another, single-handedly engaged 3 more Japanese, destroyed 1, then shot down still another. 4 confirmed kills. On December 26, 38 total, 2 behind Bong. McGuire returned to Tacloban late afternoon. 2 days, 7 confirmed victories, the most aggressive flying of his entire career. He'd closed the gap from 9 kills to 2 in 48 hours. The entire 5th Air Force was talking about it. McGuire was on fire, but Bong was already halfway across the Pacific, heading for San Francisco for parade appearances and newspaper interviews. For his moment as America's greatest fighter pilot, General Kenny received updates on both men. Bong's publicity tour, McGuire's Christmas rampage. The situation was developing exactly as Kenny feared. If McGuire kept flying at this pace, he'd break Bong's record before Bong even reached California. America's ace of aces would lose his title before receiving his welcome home celebration. The publicity disaster would be complete. Bong would arrive as yesterday's news. McGuire would be the new champion. The carefully planned narrative would collapse. Kenny grounded McGuire on December 27, direct order. No more combat missions until Bong had received his proper celebration. McGuire was to remain at Tacloban, attend to administrative duties, train replacement pilots, stay out of the cockpit, stay away from combat. The order was clear, unambiguous. McGuire acknowledged it, said he understood, told Kenny he'd comply. He lied. December 30, McGuire flew an unauthorized fighter sweep.
His squadron knew he'd been grounded. They looked the other way, pretended not to. Notice when he climbed into the cockpit, took off, hunted for Japanese fighters over Luzon. The mission found no targets, no kills, but McGuire had flown anyway. December 31st, another unauthorized mission. New Year's Eve, McGuire led a 4-ship flight over Muro. Again, no contact, no kills, but, again, he'd violated Kenny's direct order. January 2, 1945. Third unauthorized mission, this time over Lee Gulf. Limited enemy activity. No opportunities, no kills. 3 combat missions in 4 days, all unauthorized. All in direct violation of General Kenny's grounding order. None resulted in additional victories, but McGuire had shown his willingness to disobey. His obsession with breaking Bong's record had overridden military discipline. Kenny never discovered the unauthorized flights. No one reported the flights. The entire 431st Fighter Squadron kept the secret. McGuire remained officially grounded, officially waiting for Bong's celebration to finish, officially appearing to follow orders. On January 7, he planned one final unauthorized mission, 4 P-38s on a fighter sweep over Negro Island. This time, he kept the external fuel tanks attached. Keeping the drop tanks during combat went against every principle McGuire had documented. His tactics manual for the 5th Air Force was unambiguous: jettison external tanks before engaging enemy aircraft. Extra weight compromised maneuverability, made the P-38 sluggish in turns, reduced climb performance, lengthened dive recovery, and increased stall speed. Standard operating procedure was clear. When enemy aircraft appeared, release the tanks immediately. The sequence took 2 valve switches and a tank release pull, 3 seconds that could save a life. McGuire knew this better than anyone. He had written the manual, trained replacement pilots, and survived 2 years of combat by adhering to these rules. On October 17, 1943, over Oro Bay, he dropped his tanks before diving into 7 zeros, a decision that saved him even after his P-38 was shredded by enemy fire. But on January 7, 1945, he ordered his flight to retain their tanks. Surviving pilots later recorded his words, "Save your tanks." The reasoning made sense for the mission profile. Negro Island was distant from Dulag. The round trip required careful fuel management. If they abandoned tanks over the first airstrip and found nothing, they couldn't reach the second. They'd have to return to base with no kills. But keeping the tanks once enemy fighters appeared made no tactical sense. Every pilot in the formation understood this. At McGuire, Captain Weaver, Lieutenant Throp, Major Rittmer. The P-38 Pilot Training Manual, AAF Manual 51-127-1, explicitly stated, "Drop external tanks for greater maneuverability in combat." When Warrant Officer Sugioto's Oscar attacked, McGuire should have jettisoned the tanks instantly. 3 seconds, 2 switches, 1 pull, and the P-38 would have been lighter, more agile, capable of turning with the nimble Oscar. Instead, he retained the tanks, attempting to outmaneuver an instructor pilot with 3,000 hours in the Ki-43 at 300 feet, carrying 1,000 pounds of extra fuel. Physics was unforgiving. The Lightning stalled, snapped, rolled inverted, and crashed. Later analysis by 5th Air Force pilots identified the drop tank decision as the primary cause of death. Without them, he might have recovered from the stall despite low altitude. With them, the P-38 was a death trap in a low-speed turning fight. Why didn't McGuire release the tanks? There had been time. Sugioto's engagement unfolded over 30 to 40 seconds, ample to flip 2 switches and drop the tanks. Several theories emerged. First, he was fixated on the kill, entirely focused on lining up on Sugioto, scoring his 39th victory, closing in on Bong. Survival became secondary. Second, he was task-saturated. Managing the P-38 at low altitude demanded complete attention: throttle control, aileron and rudder coordination, airspeed monitoring, enemy tracking, predicting movements. Dropping the tanks may have been one task too many. Third, he may have believed his skill could compensate. He was one of the finest P-38 pilots in the Air Force, legendary at handling the large twin-engine fighter. He'd survived countless engagements through superior flying and may have thought he could outmaneuver the physics, the weight penalty, the stall. He was wrong. Obsession with Bong consumed him. From mid-1944 to early 1945, his life revolved around closing the gap. Every mission was an opportunity to score, every engagement a chance to catch Bong. The fixation drove him to fly with head wounds, bullet grazes, broken ribs, to ignore General Kenny's grounding, to violate his own tactical principles. On January 7, it led him to keep external tanks in a low-altitude turning fight, pushing the P-38 past stall speed, and crash at 300 feet chasing his 39th kill. Thomas McGuire died doing exactly what he had warned others never to do. The irony was stark. His death shocked the 5th Air Force, not simply because he died in combat,
as pilots fell daily, but because one of the finest P-38 pilots in the theater perished at 300 feet due to violating fundamental tactical rules.
The lesson was undeniable.
Within 48 hours, General Kenny issued new standing orders: all P-38 pilots must jettison external tanks before engaging enemies, no exceptions, no discretion.
Failure to comply would bring disciplinary action. 5th Air Force training programs incorporated McGuire's final mission as a case study.
Replacement pilots learned about January 7, 1945, the unauthorized fighter sweep, the decision to keep tanks, the low-altitude turning fight, the stall, and the crash. The message was clear: even the best pilots die when fundamentals are ignored. McGuire's manual remained in use, his teachings on fighter tactics, Japanese aircraft analysis, and maximizing P-38 performance saved lives.
Yet the irony of his death endured: the author perished violating his own principles. The rivalry with Bong ended there.
Bong retained his status as America's ace of aces, 40 confirmed victories, Medal of Honor, national hero, but the victory felt hollow. He had lost a fellow P-38 pilot, someone who flew as aggressively and understood the obsession with aerial victories. Bong never returned to combat, married Marjorie Vattendahl on February 10, 1945, participated in war bond tours, then became a test pilot at Lockheed's Burbank plant, evaluating the P-80 Shooting Star, America's first operational jet. On August 6, 1945, the day the atomic bomb fell on Hiroshima, Bong died in a P-80 crash during takeoff due to engine failure, killed instantly at 24, just 7 months after McGuire.
Both America's top aces were gone before their 25th birthdays. McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey was named in his honor in 1948 and continues operations today.
C-17 Globemaster and KC-10 Extender aircraft bear his legacy, while a P-38 Lightning is displayed at the entrance. His Medal of Honor resides in the Base Museum alongside combat photographs and mission reports. A memorial at Negro Island, erected in 2007 by aviation archaeologist David Mason and maintained by local Filipinos, honors the pilot who died in their jungle and was ultimately returned home for proper burial.
The lessons from January 7, 1945 remain enduring: obsession clouds judgment, rivalry drives poor choices, and ignoring fundamentals kills even the most skilled operators.
McGuire was America's second highest scoring ace, a brilliant pilot, tactical innovator, and leader, but he died because he neglected the basics in pursuit of one more kill. 38 confirmed victories, 2 behind Dick Bong, 2 kills away from tying the record, 2 external tanks away from survival, 300 feet from recovery, 1 decision from living.
If this story moved you as it moved us, hit that like button. Each like tells YouTube to show this story to more people. Subscribe and turn on notifications.
We recover forgotten stories from Dusty Archives daily, tales of pilots who ruled the skies with skill and obsession.
Real people, real consequences. Drop a comment now to tell us where you're watching from. United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia?
Our community spans the globe.
You're not just a viewer, you help preserve these memories.
Share your location, whether someone in your family served. Thank you for watching and for ensuring Major Thomas McGuire's story is remembered.